Hello everyone, welcome back to the Edain mod. Today on our little history mini-series we have my favourite faction, Imladris. And honestly there is not much to talk about with Imladris because for those who don't know, they are the most recent faction that was added to the Edain mod. Although saying that was many moons ago. And the first thing to know about Imladris is they are probably more changed from their original forms in Edain 3.8 than what they have been changed in 4.4 to 5, which is how long they've been around for. And we're up against Gondor. Oh, we're gonna have a fun time with Gondor. So, first thing to know about Imladris, they've not been around long enough that their power tree was not changed. They had a power change a power change. They used to have a horn on the tier 1. They used to have some other cool abilities, but the majority of their powers have not really changed. Training of the Firstborn was not originally a power. I believe they did have a flood along with the Last Alliance, so they were very aggressive in the late game. They did have Luthien's Song, they had Summon Tom Bombadil. Protection of the Brunnen is actually a more recent power that was updated. We'll go into more detail and why that later. I believe they had an Arrow Volley or an Elven Wood. They had some stuff in tier 2 that I can't remember. But they didn't have much changed about them. And again, that's the main thing with not Lothlorien, with Imladris. They've had so little changes. Gildor, still a pretty useless hero, but this map has trolls, and you know what does good against trolls? A ranged hero, which we do have. So, the first major change, which is actually the most recent change that Imladris have received, is our starting units. We no longer have the Imladris Swordsmen of yesteryear. We have Rivendell Blade Masters, and these Blade Masters are really good because they're the only starting unit that does AoE damage. And they're particularly good against non-elite, non-heroic, or hero units because obviously their splash damage doesn't affect them. But when you do get their splash damage up and activated, oh, you better believe you're going to be doing well. Now, another thing about Imladris is they're probably the faction that needs their outposts either the most or the least, depending on who you're playing against. Most factions like Rohan, I go for that outpost straight away. It is so good to have. Although with Imladris, you only really want your Dunedain outpost or an ordinary outpost if you actually have a need to spam units. Because otherwise you have your Blade Masters which can cut through nearly any starting unit. I can hardly think of any faction that is actually worth going for Imladris units with, because going for full Imladris units is actually really dangerous because one, they're very expensive, but you need to also notice that yes, almost one hit is enough to kill each of these Gondor soldiers. So a faction like maybe the Dwarves, who have slightly tougher early infantry, you might be thinking, okay, I'll go for Dunedain instead because they're cheaper, you can get archers for them. And I'm spending less economy for something that's just as good, which is good. But then you might be against a faction like Gondor or Mordor, for example. Mordor's probably the best example of a faction you want to actually be going for your Blade Masters more than anything else, because large units that have small health bars can be cut through twice as fast with a unit of Blade Masters than any other faction. But then again, a Blade Master that costs 500... you have to take into account that if you lose one of those units, that's a lot of money you're losing, where every other faction, Mordor, 3 Orcs, Gondor and Rohan, Peasants for 200, Dwarf Guardians for 200. And yeah, look how we're kind of actually losing to this one Warg. So we can then use Heal. Heal is actually, we're actually the only faction that actually has a tier 1 heal now. We're the only faction that has that retained in our kit, because every other faction has it really easily and doesn't worry about it at all. But yeah, these Gondorians are just spamming their soldiers. That's probably the worst thing they can do. I'm still going to build the Dunedain outpost because the Dunedain outpost is still an essential building in Imladris. I'm going to keep going between Lothlorien and Imladris. I'm sorry, but that's going to happen. But the reason why Imladris is one of those factions that really benefits from having a bit of everything is because their early game is, you have to be slow. You have to play really slow in their early game to get the best out of them. If you think, oh yeah, I can just go all my elite units, or I can go all my Dunedain units, you're not thinking properly. The main thing with the elves is, well, not just the elves of Imladris, but the elves of Lothlorien too. You need to be considering every possibility with utmost care. These guys aren't a faction you can just go into for your first time and instantly win. That's not quite how they play. You've got to be more on your toes than that. This fight here, we're up against several units of got a unit of Gondor archers, several soldiers, and pikemen. I know my Blade Masters can handle this on their own, but we also need to consider that if we've got someone attacking us in our base and we haven't closed the gates, we need to prepare for that. Look at these units of Blade Masters getting ruined by those archers. If I can't get that other Blade Master out, there we go, he's dead. That's a whole unit gone worth of 500 resources that I'm never going to get back. And we need to be careful about that happening, which is why I try to focus those archers down with Gildor. Because archers are actually really good against Imladris, which actually makes early game Lothlorien really good against Imladris because of that. But also another thing about Imladris is you don't get any early game archers. That's never been a thing for Imladris unless you get the Dunedain encampments. That's always been a thing. And yeah, we've now got a tower up here. We're going to kill off those archers because all their infantry is paltry to our units. We actually want archers of our own to counteract their own archers. I'm hoping my other Blade Master can get here quickly so we can deal with them. But yeah, look at that. If they're not focusing on our best units, then they're focusing a building that they can't destroy. That's on them. They're just going to lose that engagement very, very quickly. Make sure we turn around so we don't get hit in the back. But again, that's always been a thing with Imladris. You have to always be conservative with your resources and be willing to make a full-on sacrifice on either your buildings, your economy. Well, actually no, your economy is the one thing you can never really sacrifice. If at all possible, your economy must always come first. Your economy should always come first above everything else. Because if you don't have a strong economy, you are going to fall behind on against any other faction. Because of the library. Now this is actually something that was changed in the most recent patches. Originally you had 3 different upgrades you had to get at level 1, and then you get to level 2. And then you did the same again, and you'd have 3 more upgrades, each costing like 900, and the first batch being 600. And then your buildings would be your buildings were at higher level, you'd be able to get new things. First thing we're going for immediately is agricultural studies. I always go for this, and I always incentivize people who do play Imladris regularly to focus agricultural studies if you are getting hobbit farms. Because with the agricultural study... Oh, we're getting snipes from afar, okay. Athenian Rangers meet Dunedain Rangers. Here we go. Battle of the Ages. Who wins? I think we win this just because of Gildor. If it weren't for Gildor, we would have lost. We're getting quite heavily attacked in the north at our hobbit farms. That's fine. They'll soon get more padding to protect them. And we now have the aid from the Shire. Now, with Imladris, some factions, I always just go down one side of the tree, and then we just get our elite powers, and then that's it. We just go and win. With Imladris, I prefer to go the slow, methodical route of getting everything. And I mean everything. You don't miss a single heartbeat on anything. You want everything. I'm surprised those Dunedain Rangers survived. So now we've held this land again. Now, the big thing is why I focus so much on agricultural studies is, firstly, it's your hobbit farms, so your settlements are getting higher levels. Your primary resource building. Secondly, having these buildings around and having more of them gives you discounts on your Dunedain, which are indeed very important. And also, their med camp that I've bought is a permanent healing well, like the days of yore. You don't get those kinds of buildings anymore. Oh, they're coming up with battering rams. Okay. That's why we save the hobbits for. That's what we save the hobbits for. Yeah, we've been holding them off really well, I'd say. Now, another change that came to Imladris but haven't mentioned is actually something that people completely forget about. Aristo's Supervision. Originally, it was just a small thing like, yeah, okay, you put it on your resource building, you get more money. You put it on a military building, you get more research rates. Now, without Aristotle, you can't get your upgrades from your blacksmiths, you can't get your banner carriers from your barracks, you can't do quite a few things. But let's have a look at everything quickly. And the Scripture Workshop produces more resources. Elrond Forge can research upgrades. Military structures, researches units 100% faster and can research upgrades. The library, lore masters can be recruited faster and for a reduced cost. So everything in there is unique and valuable. And I'm actually going to open the gate after it's been healed so I can get these blade masters out and fight. So I've not been paying attention to where the action has been, and they're already getting prime siege equipment. Heal the blade masters. Oh, that was a whole unit. Oh dear. Then we're going to get advanced forging studies. So what the forging studies does is improves the level of your, not research building, your forgers, but more than that, it also allows for your units, when they get their upgrades, to get a second tier of upgrades. So for like your swordsman, you get your basics forged blades, then you get Eregion blades, and then for your archers you get Eregion gold thorn arrows, and then Eregion tips or something. I think that's what it's called. And it just makes your ability to do more damage, and it gives a special ability, which I'll go into more detail on when we actually get them. In fact, I think I might say here, yeah, once you get gold tip arrows. And it's Eregion tips. The gold tips arrows of Eregion after you get the regular gold tips. So we're actually going to get Aristo's Supervision onto a forge and start pumping out that upgrade. Other than that, we've done pretty good. We've secured our position. We prevented the enemy from destroying my base. And now if they come forward with a siege unit, like a battering ram, they'll have to deal with the floodgates. You're one of the few factions that actually gets a forward post like this. You and Angmar, I believe, are the only two factions that have that actually showing. I believe the Dwarves do technically have it as well now with the oil, the burning oil they can create. But again, that's considering you have to actually have other upgrades to do it first. No, I don't think we do have to. I think we can just sit here and wait. Let them come to me. I'm going to build more hobbit farms. Although we are also going to get the Linden Watchtower now. So the Linden Watchtower originally is not a building from Imladris, believe it or not. It is actually a building that was originally introduced in the beginning of the Edain mod with Arnor, the only sub-faction so far known in the game. I'm not saying there are more, I'm just saying that it's the only one we know of. But you can see now, even though our Blade Masters are comparable to these Tower Guard in price, their Tower Guard are actually better because they're immune to our splash damage. And in fact, because of the fact they've been making so much of them, I should probably invest in the military studies so I can go into my Rivendell Swordsman. I'm also Rivendell Archers, but to be fair, Dunedain Archers are about just as good as the Rivendell Archers at tier 1 with no upgrades, because of the fact that there are more of them. And again, like I said, your Blade Masters do really well against basic units. Your Dunedain Archers do really good against everything else. In my honest opinion, you do want to have your Blade Masters to clean out any other riffraff your enemy's faction can throw at them, throw at you. Especially with Unexpected Salvo, the ability that the normal Dunedain Rangers, the normal Ithilien Rangers get, but also Dunedain Rangers from Arnor, if you get them. Not sure what half our units are doing here. I kind of just told them to move and do stuff, but they're kind of just disobeying me also. Yeah, as we try to expand, there are more things we have to consider with Imladris, which does actually make their transition into the late game a lot rougher than other factions, believe it or not. You don't want to get, you do want to get to the late game as quick as possible, but you also need to consider, are you ready for the late game as ready as you think you are? Your late game is definitely one of the strongest, but are you prepared to enter that with everything you've got? Because if your enemy is more prepared for a late game strategy than you are, then I think it's safe to say you've lost with Imladris. You do need to be prepared. Okay, so this power journey to Valinor, I believe, was also a power not originally a part of Imladris. Don't quote me on that. I'm fairly certain I'm right on that, though. There are summoned eagles, so I'm glad I went away at that time. Yeah, Gondor likes to throw out those eagles quite often, as we have seen on the many times we've actually faced Gondor on these trials. We fought against them as Rohan, no we didn't. We fought against them as Lothlorien recently, but we also are now fighting them again as Imladris. And I must say, despite the fact that we are elves, we are not quite prepared to deal with eagles. We need the military studies. And in fact, I'm also thinking of closing the gate just to keep my units safe. But then again, that's not going to really work.
It's the enemy base.
So this is a unit, the Lawmaster, by the way. Haven't really shown them off at all since my return to Edain this year. However, there is good reason why I haven't shown them off. They're a very finicky unit. They're not the kind of unit you would use from the beginning of a game. They're a kind of unit that you prepare everything for, because if you're not prepared to use them, then they lose their position in the melee. They could end up just in the front of the brunt of the fight, trying to face against a endless wave of enemies. But then at the same time, we're doing Ring Around and Roses with Gondorian Tower Guards. So if we had Lawmasters, they could end up in the melee by accident, and then they could just get hit once or twice. And they are about, if you think of the Angmarian sorcerers, the sorcerer unit, they're about as weak as them, except they are a single entity, so they're even more difficult to keep alive than the sorcerers, because they actually have their acolytes protecting them at all times. And yeah, this heal, every time it's come off cooldown, we just have to keep using it. Honestly, that is probably the way you should be playing as Imladris. If you're using your heal off cooldown, you know you're doing good stuff. So, I know I've been talking a lot about Imladris in general and not actually talking about any changes to Imladris. That's because, as I said at the very beginning, Imladris has had so little changes. There's really been nothing. There really is nothing going on with Imladris that's really changed. The biggest changes, again, I've already mentioned, was when the powers got changed, how the library is slightly more valuable than it already was. In fact, no, I'd say it's less valuable than it was before, but it is more valuable in general, because of the fact that it's is the way you get all of your upgrades. But obviously upgrades in general were pretty nerfed. Now we're going to get Elrond. Again, a hero that has received 0 change in this mod. The only change I could say for Elrond is that he's now been put in the library. And Edain and Elrond here got put in the barracks, and Glorfindel is in the stables, and that's why we're getting the stables. Because as much as Imladris Cavalry is better than the options we get for... what the hell is that range? What was I talking about? Forgot. I forgot already. Alright, Cavalry. Despite the fact that their Cavalry is better than most Cavalry in the game, because it functioned pretty much the same as the rest of Imladris' roster. Slightly smaller units, more elites from the beginning, but also have abilities. Despite the fact they have all that, they are still cavalry. And most AI like to spam a lot of pikemen, just basic infantry pikemen, to pretty much contradict any potential... Sorry, not contradict, counteract any potential usage of units such as our illustrious cavalry. Now I'm going to say one more point and get the section of Bruinen, because the main thing that happened with that power is originally it was a... I can't remember the name of the power from Angmar Vanilla. It's Cold Snap, I think, where a building becomes invulnerable but can't do anything. But instead of making the building useless, it can actually do stuff. It's just that the building is invulnerable. Now, technically, Imladris already has a way of making buildings invulnerable by merging 2 Lore Masters together. And in fact, we shouldn't even be merging Lore Masters because we need the mystical studies to actually make them good. Again, that's the reason why I don't go Lore Masters, is the fact you need to go for a form of your Aristotle Supervision that requires you to have... I keep forgetting the name of it. It requires things to make things work. It requires a lot of stuff. Hi Kylo man, how you doing? But yeah, that's what makes Lore Masters, in my opinion, They used to be really fun. They are still really fun. It's just the fact that you getting the upgrades for the Lore Masters are so much less important than they used to be. If you're going to go Lore Master upgrades, you have to accept that you're not getting your upgrades for your hobbits farms, or your military buildings, or your blacksmiths, and I value them 100 times more than I would my my Lore Masters. So I think that's why Lore Masters have not really been on my my list of things to look at recently. They've just not had that wow factor for me. That's got me back into them. Are they attacking me with siege? No, they're attacking me with basic soldiers. Okay, let's fall back, because I've still got plenty to talk about, just in very small doses. So, as I mentioned before, originally you just had to get 3 and then another 3 upgrades on your as Imladris to upgrade your library and then all your buildings at the same time. Although this didn't affect your resource buildings, because again that was linked to the economy patch, which removed the need for getting resource upgrades individually or getting military buildings separately. They all came in one package. Which, again, because of the fact that it's now in one building, it makes the mystical studies so much less efficient. You go for the mystical studies, again, you're losing out on your economy, you're losing out on your military, you're choosing a niche ability over some very important stuff in your faction, is what I'm trying to say. It's the last thing you go for, unless you actually go for the Author's Halls over the blacksmiths, which I prefer the blacksmiths 1,000 times, because again, they're your way of getting... Sorry, my ear just popped. They're your only way of getting any actual upgrades for your units, which, by the way, you do want. They are amazing. Because again, once you upgrade them enough, they get further upgrades upon those upgrades. Which originally was a thing that the Dwarves actually had back in the Edain 3.8, where all the units could get mithril. But let's not talk too much on what was in the older version of the game when we can just talk about everything that happened in this version of the game. Those Gondor soldiers are walking into their deaths. Let's tap that. And let's fall back a little bit. Further than before. So, I have mentioned a lot in the beginning that the Dunedain are quite important, but I haven't really been using them much. That's because, as I said, some factions, you don't really need the Dunedain. You want to be going... By the time your Dunedain are valuable enough to get a lot of, you instead have better options. Your Imladris units are your better options, for Gondor in particular. Because once they start getting things like Tower Guards, yes, your Blade Masters become less useful, but having Imladris Archers is better because they can get heavy armor, while your Dunedain cannot. Yeah, yes, they become invisible in trees, but do you see any trees on this map? You don't see many of the trees on the map, do you?
Nothing shall stand before us.
Yeah, being invisible near trees isn't used as often as you'd think it would be. Gonna get some more enlarged swordsmen. So as I said, this unit used to be your bread and butter early tier units. They would always get because, yeah, it's the only unit you could get at the beginning, other than pikemen. And as you can guess, I haven't built a single unit of pikemen because we've not gone against a single unit of cavalry. So yeah, you can see by Aragian blades, cause a higher attack speed. Now that's useful on both of our infantry units because one unit of infantry does lots of damage to basic units, which by the way, even though they could be going all elites right now, they're still spamming out some basic units to slice over. But if we were going against another player, I would probably have gone all enlarged swordsmen here, because they are just overall better. And they were actually put to tier 2 because of the fact that Blade Masters weren't really used against everyone. Oh, there's the Army of the Dead. Well, there goes everything I had. In fact, no, it's not everything gone yet. We have protection of the Brewing End. You know what this does? It makes a flood. That's right, our old... Look at that. That killed the Armor of the Dead. I just killed the Army of the Dead with a tier 3 power. I just killed the Army of the Dead. Can anyone say they've done that? Can they? Can anyone say they've ever actually killed the Army of the Dead? Oh, that feels good. And the thing is, with some of our elven units, they actually just do magic damage. I believe our Imladris Archers, once they get their gold tipped arrows, actually do magic damage. Yeah, enhances the damage caused by arrows distinctly. Doesn't say by how much, but, you know. You look at that. That one single man from the Army of the Dead either just dissipated or was sliced down by Arwen. Yeah, I don't think many other factions can do that right now, where they can actually just go in and say, you know what, we're going to kill the Army of the Dead. Oh my god, if I was actually that Gondor player, and that happened to me, I would be raging right now, because... Oh god, that was hilarious. Oh. But yeah, Imladris has always been a faction that is known to do magic damage. Again, Lore Masters. Their things are that they do magic damage. By either air, water, earth, or light. Now, each one has a different specialty. For example, if one of you focusing down enemy heroes, because you don't have a hero killer, you can go for light mages, because they do really strong single target damage. If you want to be doing crowd control, you want air or water wizards, because they slow down enemies or knock them back. Obviously, some units can't be slowed down, some heroes can't be knocked back. Oh well, that's why you got the option between the two. Oh no, Gildor died. He's like, how much, 100? 200 now? 350, wow. What a rip-off. What else? Alright, Earth is the last one that does bonus damage to structures.
Our people must survive.
So you have quite a few options with what they can... Oh, there's the rules. Oh yeah, another thing. The Journey to Valinor actually also stops the Army of the Dead, because the Army of the Dead is magic damage, I'm fairly certain, and the rest place is protection from magic damage. I think I lost all my archers immediately, that's why the eagles are still ripping through me. So I'm going to get a few more. In fact, no, I'm not going to get a few more. I'm going to get Kurdan. Because these eagles will be gone eventually. They're about to disappear now, actually. Oh, can't hobbits... Oh, actually, I've never read these abilities. When fighting with rocks, the hobbits attack faster than the longer they fight. Immune to fear and grant nearby allies fear immunity. So that's why they've always got an aura around them. I never knew that. In fact, no. Tell a lie. I probably knew that. I just never remember it. Okay, we've got all our upgrades now. So now we can actually finally take Supervision of Aristotle from here. Put him back into the base and put it onto the barracks so we can get the banner carriers. So maybe thinking, why are banner carriers so held back? You forget, a lot of factions actually have held back banner carriers. The Dwarves require you to have the elite equipment because they're elite units. When they get banner carriers, that's regeneration. And regeneration was removed from basic wells for a reason. And it's because if you get... Oh, they destroyed my farm. Oh. At least it wasn't the Dunedain encampment they lost. But as I was saying before I was interrupted by the eagles, actually no, before the eagles. The thing with banner carriers, for some fact, especially Imladris in fact, I think Imladris is probably the most held back with banner carriers. Because you need the library to actually get Aristotle's Supervision. But once you have that upgrade, and you get that, you have the banner carriers, your unit of 5 can very quickly go down to 1 from a combat, but then very quickly return to 5. And that means a lot more to some factions than others. Like Gondor, 15 units, 15 entities in a unit. Losing 1 or 2 is not a big deal. But a faction like Imladris losing 1 or 2 swordmasters, or swordsmen, or even archers, losing a few of them is pretty big. Oh yeah, this increased the attack of our allies. It's pretty good. But yeah, look at that recruit speed. That's actually faster than recruit speed in Lothlorien, and that's just thanks to Aristotle. Okay, I think it's time to get some Lore Masters. It's time to show what they can actually do. So yeah, if we wanted to, we could actually reduce their costs by putting Aristotle into the library. But I'm not in a rush to get that kind of upgrade. We're making good money. And our archers, if we put them in aggressive stance, will actually be one-shotting everything. And unerring shots. The archers and archers are unerring shots with their bows and hamper enemies with their excellent accuracy. Enemies shot by them lose speed and damage in 5 seconds.
Victory will be ours.
Yeah, even just having one unit that can do that is really efficient. Because that is a noticeable debuff. That was the Grey Company that just summoned. They summoned their own Edain arrow here and their own Halberad. Okay, so Lore Masters. The version I prefer the most is of the Seas because it has a heal. So if you're not got your heal off cooldown, you can get your heal off cooldown. And I lost my Lore Master and he's probably going to die now. Yeah, slowing and damaging the enemies around him. But then the other Lore Master we're going to make of Earth. As I said, Earth, their main thing is that they damage enemy structures and lightly damaging units, which is a mini knockback on most units. But you can see that mini knockback and stuff. But then you can also combine 2 Lore Masters together. And fusion, ha! Now they get a new ability on top of the 2 abilities they already had. What was the ability of the Earth Mage? I'm glad you asked. I'm going to try and find out by clicking on the units. But they are very hard to select, as you can see. See, as I said, we've got a mini heal on everything around us. Oh no, I might have changed. Restoring some health for all near front. Yeah, oh, all our units were already full healed. Okay, going back to the Lore Master. The Lore Master shake the earth below a target enemy, burning disable it for 30 seconds. So again, it's like what I said about the cold snap thing that Who's-It gets. Leave me alone, Gondor. I'm trying to talk about cool stuff. We've also got the Protective Moat. The combined knowledge of stones and seas creates a protective moat around the friendly structure for 1 minute, preventing melee attacks from attacking it. So basically, it is the same as like the Crystal Moat or the lava zone that Tollingorhof has for
We will defend the elven lands.
oh, what's the name? For Mordor, for Sauron, for Gorfauer.
Stay on guard. Press on. Nothing shall
But again, obviously, it's a thing you need to actually get into range to do. Although I think the range is actually quite substantial. Oh no, they nerfed the range. It is about you can't really do it from a screen away, but anything in the screen's area, you can pretty much guarantee you're going to be able to hit.
Protect these lands.
And next we have the Studies of the Winds, which as I said is a knockback, and Study of Light. So Study of the Winds damages enemies and knocking them back. The damage is actually quite substantial. Any low tier unit that has either small numbers or just can't keep up will very quickly fall. And then we've got those Studies of Light, which does heavy single target damage. It doesn't specify good against heroes, although that is pretty much what you would use it for. So what does the Wind Wizard give? The Breeze of Valinor. The Breeze of Mongway, granting them 50% movement speed and knockback resistance for a short time to nearby friendly units. So that's a big movement speed increase, don't forget. As I said, I've not been going for Cavalry because, well, obviously I don't typically go for Cavalry, but also if I weren't to go for Cavalry normally, these unit guys are now moving 50% faster. That's a half increase to their movement speed, which is quite substantial when you think about it properly. And then also Blinding Flare, which technically is a hero ability because Arwen has the exact same ability, the Light of the Even Star. Enemies near Arwen flee, but with this light, it only terrifies nearby enemies into flight. So it is pretty much the exact same ability, slightly reworded. A slightly reworded ability that does the exact same thing. And then when they are merged together, they create the Searing Sunlight. The combined knowledge of light and wind creates a powerful beam of sunlight at the target location, blinding and paralyzing enemy units nearby. So the biggest thing about light and wind is that they do a lot of demoralizing, debilitating effects. So if you've got your heroes and you want to try and kill off an enemy hero without the enemy army being a problem, like doing massive damage to them, you can go for light and wind and pretty much do the sun flare design. But all it does is makes all units in the area pretty much get cloud breaks. So you've got a mini cloud break on your two abilities. Again, the Lawmasters are really good. The only problem is, if anyone actually notices them quick enough, they can just get cut off straight away. Faramir can just kill them immediately. A Gildor can kill them immediately. Aragorn, who still has his knife throw, can kill them immediately. Gimli, axe throw. Legolas, twin shot, will probably kill both of them with one shot. Haldir with his attack, the Hobbits, Merry, Pippin, and Frodo and Sam are actually really good at removing the threat of Lawmasters. Enemy Lawmasters of Light are really good at dealing with the Lawmasters because again it's single target damage. I can't really think of much else, but yeah, that is still a long list. I'd say the worst factions to deal with the Lawmasters are probably Mordor, if they don't have Nazgul, or if you have a lot of protection around your Lawmasters like Pikemen. Pikemen Lawmasters is actually a pretty strong combination, because if the Lawmasters are allowed to keep sieging the enemy base, if they're Earth, or just constantly knocking enemies back with wind, for example, it really does become a problem. Now we're building office halls here, just to say I did build them once. Now this building, I believe, did get changed a bit, but no, it's exactly the same. Reduce the reload time of spellbook powers. So you remember, you know about Mordor, how they have an ability that building does the exact same thing? Yeah, they copy-pasted it onto Imladris as well because they've got some pretty cool powers too. I don't really like it. I really don't like that Imladris has the same power as another the same ability on a building as another faction, such as the Office Hall. Or however, with the Office Hall, if you use Aristotle Supervision, it does double the economy it makes. So if you're trying to make a good standing economy later in the game, get an Office Hall, get it upgraded with Supervision of Aristotle, and your the mystical studies is how you upgrade them. So there is a build, I believe, you can actually just go full Lawmaster. Not recommended in my honest opinion, but you can go for it. But yeah, with the Lore Masters, all four, there are a lot of different combinations, but I can't remember all of them. Off the top of my head, they're for obviously Earth, Water is the Moats, Light and Wind is the Sunlight. I believe Light and Water is like a taste of rainbow effect. It's super fun to look at. Not really that effective because it's the same as Searing Sunlight and the Blinding Flash that the Lore Masters already have. Well, the Lore Master of Light already has. Let's bring up my powers now because we have pretty much won this now. We've got 3 Veterans of the Last Alliance going in with masterful expertise, so now all our units are probably going to get level 5 if they kill any units. And then depending on their level, they get more power, which is stupid ridiculously funny to think about. Other than that, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, Lore Masters. Yeah, taste the rainbow effect for Light and Water. For Water and Wind, I believe it is it's a Blessed Mist, which is the vanilla version of it. So it obscures vision, not obscures vision, but it makes units inside its stealth, but also weakens enemy units. Although I think it might just do the weaken enemy units thing. Earth and Wind make a tornado on a building. It does no damage. The building takes you deal no damage through it, but it is still a cool looking ability to use. Oh yeah, and Elrond gets a mini tornado now. Not as cool as it used to be, but it's still good in its own right. Do you want to talk about anything else in particular about Imladris? Yeah, there really hasn't been no other changes to Imladris. Like I said, there was 3 changes: the powers, the library, and the fact that heroes got moved. That was the only things that really happened to this faction. There is so little to talk about with this faction, but I'm glad I managed to get a lot of talking done, because the things that did change about them were actually quite substantial. Trying to remember other Lore Master combinations. Light and Earth, I believe, is a crystal ability, which would make a hero invulnerable, but can't attack or move. So you pretty much, if you want your hero safe, so when you get your heal back, or if you just want to stop an enemy hero from being a problem anymore, you can use that very efficiently. Yeah, that's the 3 combinations for Earth. I think I've done the 3 combinations for Water. Yeah, Taste the Rainbow, Protected Moats, and the Mist. Light and Wind is obviously the Searing Sunlight, and then Light and Earth is not Light and Earth. The Wind and Earth is the Wind, and yeah, that's it. That's everything. That's all the powers of the Lore Master. It's very hard to keep account of everything. Oh, the Linden Watchtower. I haven't shown it off on this, but I'll probably show it off in Arnor, because that's also where they are. You get in a heroic unit, the Guardians of Linden, similar to, well, they're exactly the same as they are in Arnor. But well, firstly, you need Kurdan. Secondly, you double the, well, yeah, you make things better when you have Kurdan higher level. If he's level 10, you no longer have to wait for your Linden units to be recruited. They just pay 3,900 and you get them, which is pretty stupid if you ask me, because if without siege, you'll probably never be able to take out a Linden Watchtower quick enough with how quickly they'll get summoned. Obviously, you have to think about the money, but look at this. Look how well I've been focusing on my money in this game. It's been so good. In the beginning, it was quite rocky. I wasn't quite paying enough attention in certain areas, but we got that's the thing. This watchtower, it may not look like it's much, but the money it's been generating and the units it gave us in the beginning are a big factor. And it gives you siege, which were also reworked. And look how fast that's recruited. That is a stupid levels of recruitment speed. I believe that's some of the fastest recruitment speed for siege equipment in the game. And again, only 10 command points, because that's what happened with the siege rework. Siege became a lot easier to get access to, and are just better in general. So yeah, Banners of Linden, I believe that's the ability is what they have in in Arnor.
Face them.
They also
On guard.
can switch between sword and bow. But of course, for this, you need to have the military studies, the advanced military studies, in fact. And you get more armor in melee stance. Oh, is it? Against melee damage. Ah, okay, that makes sense. And then you can also go attack formation, which is extra attack damage, but less armor and speed. So if you're going to be standing your ground, use that. Use the Linden Guardians. They're really good at holding the ground. That they need to. And also Elrond. That little flood we used earlier with Elrond, which was like 1 horse, is now 5 horses. That evolves as he levels. I believe that's one of the few evolving powers in the game. That actually starts from level 1 going up to level 10. Really nice. Yep, that is Imladris, my favourite faction. They truly have a place in my heart because even through all my talking and slightly hurting my throat doing it, we've actually just won with very minimal ease. Very minimal difficulty, that's the word. With ease. We won with ease. Oh god. I'm terrible with my words sometimes. But yeah, that was a quite clean-cut victory. No matter who I was up against, I'm very certain with Imladris I could have won. Because that is how well I know the faction. I played them so much, I lost the ability to lose with them. Although, don't try and PvP me, because I don't do PvP. So yeah, that was Imladris, the faction most recently added to the game. Although, we soon will have them being the second most recent faction once the Misty Mountains has been released. They're close now. I don't know how close, but I think they're close. Do you think they're close? I think they might be close. So next we have the Dwarves, and we're going to be doing 3 of them. We might be able to get all 3 of them done in one sitting, and I want to try and get them all done in one sitting. So let's begin.